Completion is not about the end, but about presence in every moment. Many people spend their lives chasing after closure, fulfillment, or some ultimate milestone, believing that once they reach a certain point, only then will they feel complete. But this way of living delays peace. It turns life into a waiting game, a someday achievement, instead of a lived experience in the now. Completion, true completion, is not a destination. It is a state of being. It is a mindset, a way of walking through life with attention, awareness, and alignment with one's inner values. In every breath, every step, every word spoken or left in silence, there lies an opportunity to be complete. Not perfect, not flawless, but complete, because presence fills the gaps that striving never can. When you are present, you are no longer pulled by regrets of yesterday or worries of tomorrow. You occupy this moment fully. And in doing so, the moment transforms, it becomes enough. This presence is what allows even the smallest action to feel whole. Washing a bowl, tying a shoelace, closing a door gently instead of slamming it, all of these acts, when performed with attention, become symbols of a finished life. Because the mind is not elsewhere, the body is not rushing, the heart is not divided, presence is unity, and unity is the seed of completion. So many people imagine a completed life to be something grand, marked by achievements, legacy, fame, or recognition. But such measures are external. They are shifting and often deceptive. A person can build empires and still feel incomplete. Another may die with few possessions and yet be at peace. What's the difference? One has chased the illusion of completion, the other has practiced the presence of completion. When you can sit quietly with yourself and feel nothing lacking, you begin to understand the joy of what it means to live a finished life. It is not that there are no goals, it is not that you stop growing, it is simply that growth itself becomes sacred because you are present for it. To live in presence is to give your full self to what is in front of you. Whether it is a conversation, a task, a walk in the forest, or the pain of a challenge, your full being is there. You are not trying to escape the moment or postpone it. You do not divide your attention between now and next. There is no rush to move on, because you are not trying to arrive elsewhere. And ironically, in that stillness, you begin to move differently. You move with grace, with peace, with clarity. The sense of being incomplete starts to fade, not because life became easier, but because you became more awake to it. People often ask, "How do I know I'm living a complete life?" The answer lies not in the result, but in the quality of your awareness. Do you pause and feel the sunlight on your skin? Do you look someone in the eyes and truly listen when they speak? Do you offer help not because it's expected, but because you recognize the moment's call? These are the signs. These are the quiet fingerprints of a complete existence. They may seem small, but they build the inner foundation of a finished life. When each moment is met with care, the accumulation of those moments becomes something whole. Living in this way also means making peace with what is unresolved. Not everything in life ties up neatly. Some relationships don't heal. Some dreams remain just out of reach. But presence teaches us that completion is not dependent on external resolution. It is internal acceptance. When you stop waiting for the perfect ending, you allow imperfect moments to still be meaningful. The closure you seek is not always in circumstances, it's in your relationship with them. You can forgive without an apology, you can love without possession, you can surrender without defeat. These are the completions of the spirit, not the world. Presence also requires courage, because when you're truly present, you can't hide. You feel everything: joy, pain, disappointment, wonder. You face the truth of your life as it is. There is no escape into distractions or fantasies, but in this raw honesty you find power. You realize that being fully here, even when it's hard, is a form of mastery. You become someone who can sit with reality without needing it to change in order to feel whole. That is strength, that is wisdom, that is what it means to live in completion, not because everything is perfect, but because nothing is wasted. And in this presence, you begin to influence others. Your calm becomes a mirror. Your attentiveness awakens something in those around you. You stop contributing to the noise and start radiating stillness. You are no longer part of the world's urgency to get somewhere. You remind people, without even speaking, that there is nowhere more important than right here, that this moment matters, that this task is sacred, that this breath is enough, and in doing so, you teach by example what no lecture can impart. You show people how to live finished, not because you've reached some grand peak, but because you've come home to yourself. A finished life, then, is not a life that has ended. It is a life that is fully lived, moment to moment. It is a life where nothing is postponed, where gratitude and responsibility walk hand in hand. It is a life where you don't wait to be kind, to speak truth, to forgive, to laugh, or to rest. You do these things now, and in doing so, the future loses its grip. The past softens, and what's left is peace. Not someday, but today. When you practice presence, your actions carry weight. Your words land, your silence speaks. You begin to see that even your smallest decisions ripple far, not because they are loud or flashy, but because they are rooted in sincerity. Completion is a consequence of living in this way. It is not something you aim at. It is something that naturally emerges from attention, from consistency, from a willingness to be here fully, and not elsewhere in your mind. And when the final day comes, and it will, you will not panic. You will not scramble to finish what was left undone, because nothing of importance was ever left undone. You lived each day as it came. You honored each relationship as it stood. You took nothing for granted, and that, more than anything, will bring you peace. This is the joy of living a finished life, not because life was easy, but because you were present, and in your presence life became complete. A finished life is built through daily intentional actions, not grand gestures, not occasional bursts of discipline or emotion, but small and consistent choices made every single day. It is the way you rise in the morning with clarity, even if tired. It is the way you choose to speak gently when your anger wants to strike. It is the way you sit with your own thoughts instead of drowning them in distraction. Intentional actions are not glamorous, and they often go unnoticed by the world, but they are the building blocks of a life that feels complete from the inside. The journey to living a finished life begins with the decision to not let your days happen to you, but rather to live them deliberately. Many people wait for the perfect moment to start living with intention. They believe they need more time, better circumstances, fewer problems, more confidence. But waiting is itself a choice, and often an unconscious one. The truth is, no perfect moment is coming. Life will never pause to give you an easier entry point. And so, the finished life belongs to those who begin where they are, with what they have, and choose to act with purpose now. It starts with small things, choosing to breathe deeply instead of rushing into the day, choosing to eat with attention instead of distraction, choosing to listen fully instead of simply waiting for your turn to speak. These choices seem minor, but each one is a stone placed carefully on the foundation of your life. Over time, they become unshakable. Daily intentional actions don't just create structure, they create meaning. They are the rituals of a person who values presence, who understands that life is a series of moments, and each moment asks for your attention, your care, your truth. When you live like this, regret begins to fade. Not because everything goes perfectly, but because you were fully there for it. Even in your mistakes, you were honest. Even in your pain, you were open. You didn't sleepwalk through your days. You made conscious choices, even when those choices were difficult. This is what it means to live a finished life. Not that everything turned out the way you hoped, but that you met each day as it came, with courage and commitment. It's easy to underestimate the power of daily effort. The world celebrates overnight success, dramatic transformation, and sudden change, but what lasts is what is built slowly. The strong tree is not grown in a day. The deep relationship is not formed in a single conversation. The peaceful mind is not achieved in a weekend retreat. All of these things are the result of daily action. You practice honesty, you practice stillness, you practice love. And then one day, without even noticing, you wake up and realize your life has become the very thing you were cultivating all along, not by accident, not by luck, but by thousands of small, quiet, intentional steps. Living with intention also means making peace with repetition. So much of life is routine, the same meals, the same conversations, the same responsibilities. It's tempting to treat these things as mundane or boring, but when approached with intention, they become sacred. Washing the dishes is no longer a chore, it becomes a meditation. Walking to work is no longer a commute, it becomes a moment to reflect. Saying good night is no longer a formality, it becomes a ritual of love. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. When you bring full presence and purpose into even the simplest act, you are affirming your place in the world. You are declaring that your life matters and that nothing is beneath your attention. There is also a kind of discipline in intentional living, but it is not harsh or punishing. It is not about control or perfection. It is about alignment. You begin to notice when your actions are out of step with your values, and you gently bring yourself back. You notice when your words don't match your inner truth, and you begin to speak more carefully. You notice when you are rushing, avoiding, or numbing, and you learn to pause. This is the discipline of awareness. It is not forced, it is chosen, and it is repeated every day, not to impress others or meet external expectations, but to live in harmony with your own heart. Over time, this kind of life builds confidence, not the loud, boastful kind, but a quiet certainty. You know who you are because you have shown up for yourself again and again. You trust yourself because your actions are not random, they are rooted in something deeper. You begin to live without apology, not because you are flawless, but because you are real. You no longer need to chase after worthiness, because your daily actions affirm it. You belong here. You are living on purpose, and each day that purpose is renewed through choice. Intentional living also has a ripple effect. When others witness your consistency, your clarity, your peace, they are reminded of their own potential. You don't need to preach or persuade. You simply live. Your life becomes a quiet teaching. People feel safer around you because you are stable. They feel inspired because you are present. They feel challenged because you are awake. And in this way, your intentional actions begin to shape the world around you, not through force, but through influence. The finished life is not a masterpiece painted in one stroke. It is a mosaic, built piece by piece, choice by choice. There will be days when you fall out of alignment, when you act impulsively, speak carelessly, or drift into distraction. That is human, but intentional living is not about perfection. It is about return. Each day is a chance to come back to yourself. Each breath is an invitation to begin again. And with each return, your life becomes more whole. You don't need to do everything. You only need to do the next right thing with heart. In the end, a finished life is not a final product. It is an ongoing practice. It is not something you arrive at. It is something you become through repetition, through awareness, through care. You do not need to wait for peace or worth or clarity. You can create them moment by moment by living intentionally. That is the path. That is the joy. That is the quiet, unshakable strength of a life that has been fully lived. Peace comes not from length of life, but from depth of living. Many people mistakenly believe that if they had more years, more time, or more chances, they would finally find peace. But peace is not something you collect at the end of a long life. It is not a reward for reaching old age. It is something you cultivate now, regardless of how many days you have. A long life without depth can feel hollow, like a story with too many chapters and no meaning. But even a short life, lived with presence and sincerity, can echo with the power of completeness. The depth of your living is not measured in how many places you've been, how many people you've met, or how many tasks you've completed. It is measured in how fully you have inhabited your life, how openly you have loved, how courageously you have faced your truth, and how honestly you have walked your path. People often say they want peace, but they run from the very things that bring it. They chase distraction, accumulate possessions, or stay busy to avoid facing what truly matters. But depth requires stillness. It asks you to pause, to look inward, to listen to what's really there. And in that quiet space, you begin to touch something beyond surface living. You begin to understand that peace is not the absence of chaos or problems. It is the presence of clarity. You can be surrounded by noise and still carry stillness inside. You can walk through difficulty and still not be shaken. This peace is not found in a far-off future. It is rooted in how deeply you show up for the moment you are in. To live deeply is to live honestly. It is to stop pretending, stop performing, and stop trying to be who others expect you to be. It is to align with your own truth, even when it costs you comfort or approval. This kind of life is not always easy, but it is real, and in realness there is peace, because you are no longer divided. You are no longer acting out someone else's script. You are no longer avoiding your own reflection. When your inner world matches your outer actions, you begin to feel at home in yourself. You are no longer lost in comparison or consumed by doubt. You are grounded in who you are, and that grounding is the soil in which peace grows. Living with depth also means paying attention. It means noticing the details, the way sunlight moves through a window, the sound of a loved one's voice, the sensation of wind against your skin. These may seem like small things, but they are the fabric of life itself. When you are truly present, even the simplest moment becomes rich. A meal becomes a ritual. A conversation becomes a connection. A walk becomes a meditation. The world becomes vibrant, not because it has changed, but because you have. You have stopped rushing past your life. You have begun to experience it fully, and in that fullness there is a quiet joy. A peace that does not depend on circumstances, but on awareness. Depth also comes from accepting impermanence. Everything changes, people leave, seasons shift, bodies age, dreams evolve, and peace is not found in resisting this truth, but in embracing it. When you stop clinging, you start living. When you stop demanding permanence, you start appreciating what is. You begin to understand that every moment is precious because it will not last. Every goodbye is sacred because it holds the memory of connection. Every challenge carries within it a lesson that deepens your soul. This is the paradox of depth. The more you accept loss, the more you gain. The more you allow things to end, the more space you create for new beginnings. Peace comes not from controlling life, but from opening to it. To live deeply also means to feel deeply, not just happiness or love, but sorrow, fear, disappointment, and uncertainty. Many people try to numb these emotions or push them away, but doing so also flattens the joy. You cannot selectively numb. When you open your heart to all of it, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you begin to experience the full range of what it means to be human, and in that rawness there is strength. You stop needing life to be perfect. You stop needing to be invincible. You realize that you can break and still be whole, that you can feel pain and still be at peace. Because peace is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of compassion. Compassion for yourself, compassion for others, compassion for this life in all its complexity. Depth of living also transforms your relationships. When you live deeply, you connect deeply. You stop playing roles or hiding behind masks. You listen with your whole being. You speak with care and truth. You show up not just with your body, but with your heart. Others feel this. They sense the difference. Your presence becomes a gift. Your words become nourishment. Your silence becomes comfort. You no longer seek to impress or manipulate. You simply seek to connect, and in that connection, peace grows. It grows in the space between two honest souls. It grows in the moments when you say, "I'm sorry," or "I love you," or "I understand." It grows in the shared breath, the shared tears, the shared joy. To live a deep life is to live a life that is rooted, not drifting, not scattered, not lost, rooted in values, rooted in truth, rooted in purpose. You may not always know where the path leads, but you know why you walk. You may not always be certain of the outcome, but you are certain of your intention, and this certainty brings peace. You stop chasing approval because you already have your own. You stop fearing failure because you understand that failure is not the opposite of peace. It is often the door to it. Each stumble teaches humility. Each setback reveals strength. Each ending opens space for something new. This is depth. This is life lived from the inside out. At the end of such a life, there is no panic, no scramble to fix what was broken, no desperate wish for more time, because you have lived well, not because you did everything, but because you were truly here. You tasted life. You loved with your whole heart. You faced your shadows. You honored your truth. You did not waste your days chasing illusions. You turned each day into a practice, each breath into a prayer. And this is the legacy of a deep life. Not trophies or fame, but presence. Not noise, but peace. Not length, but meaning. Peace does not wait for retirement or some distant milestone. It is available now. In this breath, in this moment, in the decision to stop floating and start feeling, to stop escaping and start engaging, to stop surviving and start living, not just long, but deeply, and in that depth you will find everything you've been searching for. To live finished is to leave nothing unsaid, unfelt, or unloved. It is not about perfection, but about completeness, a sense that you have met your life fully and didn't hold back what mattered. So many people walk through life carrying words they were too afraid to speak. emotions they were too uncertain to express, and love they were too guarded to offer. They save these things for the right time, the safer moment, or the perfect condition. But often that time never comes, the moment passes, the person leaves, the window closes, and what remains is a weight in the heart, a sense of something left undone. To live a finished life is to stop postponing your humanity. It is to be brave enough to express, to feel, and to love. Now, while you can. There is a kind of quiet suffering in withholding what is true. When you do not say what you need to say, it lives inside you as a tension. It pulls on your thoughts, it echoes in your silence, and it becomes a barrier between you and the world. Maybe you feared rejection. Maybe you didn't want to seem weak. Maybe you thought there would be more time. But the truth is, clarity brings peace. When your words align with your truth, you become free. You no longer carry the burden of pretending or hiding. You no longer leave room for regret. Even if the outcome is uncertain, even if the other person doesn't respond how you hoped, you still gain something powerful. You gain your own voice. You gain the knowing that you showed up for your truth. Living with nothing unsaid does not mean speaking recklessly. It means speaking sincerely. It means choosing words that build bridges instead of walls. It means having the courage to apologize when you're wrong and the humility to forgive when you've been hurt. It means expressing gratitude often and clearly, not waiting for special occasions. It means telling people they matter to you, not because they need to hear it, but because you need to say it. Words have the power to shape memory, to heal wounds, to open hearts. When used with awareness, they become tools of completion. They leave behind echoes of connection rather than silence filled with regret. The same is true for feelings. Many people learn to suppress their emotions out of fear, shame, or conditioning. They become experts at hiding how they truly feel. But feelings, like words, are meant to be experienced, not buried. To feel deeply is to be fully alive. It is not a weakness. It is a strength. Sadness, joy, fear, longing, hope. All of these are part of the human journey. When you deny your feelings, you deny your life. But when you feel fully, you honor your inner reality. You let your soul breathe. You give yourself permission to exist as you are, not as you think you should be. This honesty with yourself is a core part of the finished life. Because what you feel but do not acknowledge eventually becomes a silence that disconnects you from yourself. Sometimes people ask what it means to feel everything without becoming overwhelmed. The answer is presence. When you feel with awareness, you do not get lost in your emotions. You witness them. You let them rise and fall like waves. You do not judge them, nor do you chase them. You simply allow them to be. This acceptance allows the energy to move, to change, to teach you. You don't need to fix every feeling. You don't need to understand all of them immediately. You only need to make space for them to exist. In this space you grow, in this space you heal, and over time you learn to trust your inner world. You stop fearing your own heart. You realize that nothing felt is wasted. Every emotion, when felt fully, brings you closer to peace. And then there is love, the most vital and vulnerable part of all. To leave nothing unloved is to risk being broken. It is to risk being disappointed, but it is also to live without walls around your heart. Love is not something you wait to give when it is safe. It is something you offer as a gift, even if it is not returned in the way you hoped. To love fully means to look at someone and allow your heart to be open, your presence to be real, and your care to be visible. It means not waiting to say, "I love you," not hesitating to hold a hand, to write a note, to show up when someone needs you. Love is not a feeling that floats. It is an action, a choice, a way of being. And when you love like this, you will never wonder if you gave enough. You will never ask yourself if they knew how you felt, because you lived it, you showed it, you didn't hold back. There are moments in life when the opportunity to express love is brief. A final conversation, a passing moment, a doorway you may never walk through again. In those moments, the finished life does not hesitate. It speaks, it acts, it embraces. It doesn't let pride or fear win, because it knows that love unspoken is love wasted, that waiting for the perfect moment often leads to silence, and that nothing is more sacred than showing up for love while the chance is still alive. This does not mean every relationship will be perfect, or that love will always be returned, but it does mean that you will not leave this life wondering if you lived with an open heart. To leave nothing unsaid, unfelt, or unloved is not about being dramatic or constantly emotional. It is about being complete. It is about knowing that if this day were your last, you have offered yourself fully to it, that your words, your feelings, and your love were not held hostage by fear, that you lived with integrity to your inner life. And in that integrity you found peace, not because everything went the way you wanted, but because you did not betray what mattered most. When you live this way, you become lighter, you carry less emotional debt. You spend less time regretting the past or fearing the future. You become someone who is whole in each moment. Your relationships deepen. Your sense of self strengthens. Your days become meaningful, not because of what you achieve, but because of how fully you inhabit them. You begin to walk through life with fewer apologies, fewer hesitations, and more gratitude, because you know what it means to live finished. You know what it means to give yourself completely to what is here. And when your final breath comes, you will not scramble to say what you wish you had said. You will not ache for one more chance to feel something you ignored. You will not beg for time to love someone you kept at a distance. Because you will have already done these things, not once, not occasionally, but every day as a practice. You will close your eyes not in fear, but in fulfillment, not in longing, but in peace, and those who remember you will not speak of your achievements, but of your presence, of the way you made them feel heard, seen, and loved. This is the legacy of a finished life, not what you took, but what you gave, not what you accumulated, but what you expressed, not what you planned to do, but what you actually did with your whole heart.